On today's podcast, we're happy to have independent music publisher Art Ford. I've known Art for many, many years. A great, great music publisher, very, very innovative in his approach and his thinking. We had a great conversation about all of the different aspects of independent publishing today, the opportunities that are out there for songwriters, the international marketplace, what he looks for, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss it. Be sure to check this out. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we're with leading independent music publisher Art Ford, who we had the opportunity to discuss a wide range of topics, including his criteria of who he chooses to work with and why, the most preventable mistakes he sees new songwriters making today, opportunities for songs in film, television, commercials, the international music marketplace, and much, much more. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Hey, Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured interview is with music publisher Art Ford. I've known Art for many years, and he is a very, very interesting and innovative guy. He's going to be talking to us about a lot of the aspects of current music publishing, the growth in music placement, the growth in the international marketplace. But above all, the thing that I thought was most interesting about this one is the growth in the changing criteria, or not the growth, but the changing criteria that he specifically has on who he works with and why. Those were some of the most interesting points that I thought that we had in this discussion.
Definitely. And to add on to that, which was his, finding great songwriters and talent and viable songs. And also, I thought one of the interesting points that we covered and he talked about in depth was the prices and sync placement being driven down. I mean, that's been a big, big topic of discussion with, the influx of all these TV shows and all these plethora of different mediums that it's driven the price of sync down.
Yes, because there's so many more people providing music. So you have so much content and so many people doing it, prices have been driven down.
Absolutely. So Insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured interview with Art Ford.
Art, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure.
I always like to start the interviews with our guests by asking, at what point in your life did you know that music or the music business was going to be your professional career path?
15. Yeah, I had started playing drums when I was 13 and got playing in bands and was playing clubs by the time I was 15. And I just, I had it in my blood. So I've always followed that pathway. It's funny how time takes you in different areas of the music business, but I'm good with all of it,
Yeah, Art, thank you so much for joining us. This is Eric. And, keeping on with that question, that line of questioning, was your career path always in music publishing?
No, I started out as a drummer and was a touring drummer with quite a few bands, some notable, some not, for many years. And in the mid-'80s, I got in a real bad car accident up in Seattle. And it kind of head on with a kid driving down the freeway the wrong direction with no lights on, drunk out of his mind. But it kind of stopped my drumming career in the sense that I had, it was like a computer crash on my left side as far as my motor activity working properly. And it was always 10 milliseconds behind, even hit your fingers together at the same time. So I stopped for many years because, you don't want to, be frustrated with something that's your joy and you're always fighting it because, you're not a weekend warrior at that point. So I wanted to move on and stay in the music business, and eventually started as a talent scout for several major labels in Seattle, bringing groups down, and then eventually moved to Los Angeles. And Alan Kovac had a MCA distributed label at that time called Impact Records, and I started on a low-level A&R job there. And eventually, between Alan's record company and his management company, there would be a lot of calls would come in about licensing our group. So I kind of learned it working with him, and then started, working consulting deals out with various other labels. So I had all different flavors, so you don't get pigeonholed as a guy with only one flavor, So I try to be a licensor that has, music all the way from the 1920s all the way up to the most current hip hop and pop and rock artists. So, and that's what's fun about it, staying right in the middle of it and seeing life through some eyes that have a vision, and are going with their passion. So I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Art, you've worked at many companies. You worked at Impact. You've worked at labels. You've worked at BMG. You really helped set up their whole system. And I'm curious, at what point did you decide that you were going to have your own company? What was the inspiration for that?
Well, I had a really good run there at BMG and had incredible success, but it was changing, and I'd been there for like 12 years running it, and I'd kind of done everything that I felt I could do, and I wasn't in a position where I didn't have kids and stuff that I was going to have to work to, put my children through college and all that. So I figured if, I'm always, kind of an independent spirit anyway, and started, getting into it more independently after I left BMG, and, have been in that area of it since. And I love the ability to be more liquid and be in different places and not be, tied to a corporate situation, even though I had a wonderful run at BMG with Danny Strick was my immediate boss, and Nick Firth was the worldwide gentleman, and Strauss Zelnick, of course, running the overall divisions. And they were very supportive, and really turned some stones, trying to find a better way of doing it. So and that's a continual pursuit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As the business continually evolves at a more and more rapid pace.
Now, Art, when you first started your company, how did you find great songwriters and viable songs? And can you give us an idea of what a typical day looked like entailed for you?
I was lucky. After I left BMG, Danny Strick had changed and left as well, and it was a whole new crew and so forth. And a lot of the groups that had left at that time, including the Wu-Tang Clan and quite a few others, I always had great relationships with different individuals. And, so I got into, a lot of the remnants of whether it be working A&R for the years I did or working in publishing. You meet a lot of people and listen to lots of music if that's what you're doing all day long. And, just from doing it for, I guess, so many years, I've acquired quite a catalog of artists all the way from the 20s to the latest artists. But independent artists, I'm very much independent, and I think this is the best time ever to be an independent artist. And not that it's easy. It's not easy by any means. Everybody's trying to figure it out. But it's an exciting time, gentlemen. We're right in the middle of, I think, the new generation of the music business. And I think for independent artists, it's probably the best time ever I've seen in my career that an independent artist has a real good chance of, if they have all cylinders firing, to have a hit record.
Absolutely. And can you give us an idea of what a typical workday entails for you?
Well, I get pulled in on, sometimes half a dozen to a dozen pitches a day, where there are different music supervisors or producers that are looking for a specific song within a specific time period and for a price. And so I'm kind of like a casting director, but for songs rather than actors. And I'm not really per se a library where I do these deals where it's all needle drop kind of deals. I try to have the real groups, have social media and things really happening around them. And so I get involved with these searches. If I get overrun and cannot deal with them myself, I have a coordinator that has worked with me for several years. That's a real good programmer and good music guy. I'll throw different ones to him to help me. And then he has a couple young coordinators below him that he's training that, once they really learn how to program and put music into the World Song Network, where I house all the catalogs that I represent, then I pull them in on searches. And if they, can help me find the perfect song that ends up going to license, then I give them a percentage of what I make. And so we're more like a virtual film and television music agency at this point. So we fulfill a lot of pitches every day, and I kind of look at it like buying lottery tickets in a way.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Art, then, has the streaming era been helpful to you in finding new writers or artists that your company wants to work with? Has that been helpful in this time?
Yes, it has. I have to say, though, most of the catalogs that I get are through channels, through people I know that are already in the business, and they've done a lot of the due diligence, and making sure that everybody's in agreement on the songs, and if there's samples or interpolations, all those sorts of things. So I try to do more of that with individuals, just because I know what I'm getting. I can rely upon it. But I do check social medias and various artists that are getting massive streaming and so forth. And if the majors have not already bought them up, which most of the times that is the case, I'll approach them about bringing them opportunities. So, it's kind of case by case at this point. I'm more of a boutique, I guess, in that sense. I'm not doing hundreds of deals every week, like I have done before when I've had staff. I just say it was more like a balance with me at this point after doing this for so long. You try to keep a balance of, going after the fish, I love that pursuit of trying to find the perfect song. Then, living life at the same time. So, still working.
Yeah, striking that perfect balance. I wanted to ask you, can you talk to us about, so much of what you do is creative, and so much of what the decisions you're making are creative choices on material, on songs, on writers. Can you give us any insight into what it is that you look for in an artist?
Well, in general, with music in general, there's only two types of music in my world. There's the real, authentic artists that really have a unique sound or a way of saying what they're saying and expressing their art. And then there's the copiers and the fakes and the people trying to be a rock star and not knowing how to write a song or sing, so it's, to me, I try to go with the real artist. And then from that point is, if you get as many with me, I try to have as many colors in the paint set as I can. And no matter what a filmmaker or music supervisor may ask ask for, I can come up with, great choices for them. And they're always real artists. You know what I mean? It's not library music.
So you deal with the real thing. You deal with the artists who can come up with this kind of material. Do you deal with any songwriters who are strictly writers for the sake of material, writer producers? Or is that something that you don't work with?
I do deal, of course, with songwriters that they're most known for their songwriting, but in most cases, it's licensing pre-existing music, more so than creating it. Though in certain cases, like, certain films, we've done, you create things for the scenes, and then you kind of buy the lottery ticket with the artist to see if everything falls in place, and all you can do is try to get it to the person that has the power to say yes, not just the power to say no, and give the song a chance. So it's less meaning more, with these types of opportunities. It's like coming up with one great song that blows everybody away is going to be way more effective than pitching them 10 maybes,
Yeah, Art, sync is a very big aspect of any publisher's revenue stream today, and has the proliferation of so many new music companies, libraries, and publishers driven the price you can ask for a sync down, or has the enormous volume of shows that have proliferated that are out today offset that?
I think the number of shows have offset it. Yeah, the prices are a bit down from when there was broadcast involved with it always from the beginning, but there's so much more of it now. And I think there's so much more opportunities for independent artists now. It used to be if you didn't have that record label push and hype and marketing, and they're at radio and they're touring and all cylinders firing, nobody'd really know about the band. Now bands can be known about by millions all over the world, and they've never played a live gig in their life, So, it's a different time. It's an exciting, very exciting time right now.
Because the rules are being rewritten.
Yeah. And hopefully they're going to be rewritten fairly. I hope so,
No, I do too. I sort of want to back up here for a minute based on, some of the things that we've gone through, but to take you through some very specifics of your work. In the world of music placement, there's a lot of diversity, I think, both economically and in the approval process, with music in advertising versus trailers versus music in films and music in television. For instance, music in trailers is a marketing expense, not a music budget item. Can you talk about some of those distinctions that you deal with in the different areas of music placement? Because they're not all the same.
Yeah, so, with advertising, many times there's exclusivity for a brand. If you put it on in McDonald's hamburgers, they may want fast food exclusivity, so no other company could use the song. In the sense of trailers, it is a form of advertising, but like you say, that's correct. The budget for trailers comes from the marketing budget, which is the same budget that the billboards and radio and all of it is borrowed from, and it's a bit richer budget usually than a film music budget, because even the very music-driven films, in my opinion, have very weak music budgets. So compared to the overall cost of the film, and sometimes the music can, like I remember in Good Will Hunting with Elliott Smith, that song really left a lasting impression on the viewer, and it was only, a small license. It was only a few $1,000s, but it was just, such a cool film, and it was a defining moment for him with his music. So, sometimes the value in these placements is not just how much money you make, but what it does to your career and what it does for your brand,
Yeah, it was a great artist development thing. I mean, Elliott Smith, not only, it was a cool elevator for his brand and his career, but it also got nominated for an Oscar, and he got to perform the song on the television show and so forth.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Margaret Mettleman was the A&R person. at BMG that signed him and also developed Beck and all this stuff. She was an amazing and is, an amazing A&R person. She just had that incredible ear for those real kind of artists that were different than anybody else. And, I'm very fortunate to work with that crew. When you have people like that bringing you music, it's pretty easy to be making big placements, and taking a lot of credit for it. So I try to, have an attitude of gratitude about that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, she was. I remember her very well back in the BMG days, and she did work with you. So that was terrific.
Art, is there more activity for your company these days on the international front than in years past?
Yeah, there is, because, commercials in Germany, they can pay, big money. I mean, and there's a lot of territories. Israel right now, in Tel Aviv, there's an amazing music scene, just like an open nerve. I mean, it's incredible. There's areas around where the licensing, is almost as much as here. I've done some big commercials in Israel and Germany, and where they were significant, So, and there's just such incredible music comes out of Europe that I think in many ways they embrace pop music. I mean, I hear some of those brilliant pop music come out of different parts of Europe as opposed to here in the U.S. A lot of people just dispose of pop music here because a lot of it's so disposable, But it's incredible to see what's the other, countries, how they digest American influences and then bring it back,
Have you been able to find any viable things out of the music coming out of Europe for your own company?
Yeah, I just got Have Love Will Travel by the Sonics from the early 60s, and a big LV worldwide commercial that was a huge commercial for the song. I work with Randy Meisner now from the Eagles, and just worked on had Take It to the Limit in the Cars 3 trailer here a few months back. It was a great use for it. I just here yesterday finished a Louis Vuitton commercial for a vintage, kind of real quirky, wacky instrumental from 1964 that they are putting up against really high fashion type of visuals, and I'm very excited about. A lot of the advertising now, there's brilliant stuff that, comes out. So you get it right, you can make these songs like kind of
have a chance to breathe new life into them.
Yeah, and people go, whoa, and all of a sudden, if you have them up and available for the public to stream them and download them and hear more about them, you end up, doing well. And so it's the commercial thing is definitely that's the biggest money area of synchronization licensing by far. So
that's so interesting to hear. As a modern music publishing company today, has your criteria changed or expanded over the years regarding what artists or acts you will sign, given your current infrastructure today versus in the past?
Yeah, I'm not one of these that does the big advances kind of deal. I don't do traditional kind of publishing deals. I have deals that I have to earn my way into a partnership position with the songwriters and master owners. And there's performance clauses that we all agree to before we go out there and I start, pounding the pavement with them. Then, if I can accomplish or achieve what we've set out to do, we do in many cases, I just do agreements as, the opportunities arise. And, it seems to work really well that way. Everybody, you don't spend a lot of time with attorneys and so forth trying to think of all the what ifs, and then you end up pitching songs for years and, for free. And you've got artists going, well, why did you make me go to an attorney? And, do spend this money. So I try to just kind of flow with the opportunities and do the right thing with who I'm dealing with. So I have a lot of writers and master participants that I provide royalty statements to every quarter. So I'm a publisher, and now more of a new digital label as far as the soundtrack label. So we're starting to release some of our back catalog, and I've got a lot of back catalog from like the Anthony Anderson film, My Baby's Daddy, and Triple X State of the Union, and I'm keep going back where we have big content that we've created or licensed and have rights to in those shows. So, just starting to really push it back out there for streaming sake now. So
absolutely. Art, are there any specific non-creative qualities, traits, or characteristics that you look for in the artists and songwriters that you choose to work with? And has that criteria evolved for you over the years?
I think I want to work with artists that are businessmen and women as much as they are artists. So we are a team, and I really have a kind of a layout that I have a graph that I show artists how the streams of income that come from masters and publishing. And I like to have artists that are my partners, not ones that will, get all emotional and, get all, emotional about some deal that, it's a non-exclusive deal and somebody's wanting to pay you money and you're a new group, you should take it. So, it's just that sort of thing. You just try to be real and, find people and companies to work with that really get it. And you can go out because, a lot of this you're working for nothing. You're pitching, you're spending money, trying to make things happen. And, the last thing you want as a song provider is, you don't get any love after you do bring something there. So, it's just that you try to work with people that have some gratitude, and it's with anything in life.
So it seems like it's a character issue. You want people that are, as you said, business minded, who really and that takes a certain maturity. It also takes a certain level of knowledge, I think, on the artist's part, which I'm all for. I think that artists today need to be much more sophisticated and knowledgeable about the industry they want to get into than in years past, because it's a different world today in the music business than it was in the 80s and 90s, or even in the early 2000s. Totally different business. And I think what you're saying is important because it goes to the heart of who you will and won't work with on a business level.
Yeah, because independently, you got to both throw down. You got to go for stuff, and it can't be, mommy told me I was a rock star. No, we're all in this together. We got to work. We got to, work is something that it's like really investing in yourself. So I want an artist that is a go-getter. They're going to go out there and make stuff happen. All the major labels do too. Great music comes and goes all the time. So, it's like, you want to work with people that get it. It just, you only got so much energy and time. So your time management, you're trying to bring as much, to the world as you can through the music that you feature in audio-visual placement.
Absolutely. Let me just, ask you one more question on this theme, which is what in your experience are the most common and preventable mistakes that you see new songwriters and artists make in your world?
Not having their contact information, if they're going, or good contact information, really maybe overwhelming somebody with way too much music, but have less meaning more, like under 5 songs that can really blow somebody away to go, who are you? I want more of that, that I would say, and do your research. There's just, there's so many people, jumping for this fish now. There's a lot of white noise, and it's someone that is respectful of others' time, and they know how to present their music and try to have people listen to it in a very, easy to do way. I think a lot of it is that, and then doing research and seeing what level areas of media you can, make a entrance into. So a lot of bands have live performance things that are more powerful than their recordings, and vice versa.
Hey Insiders, we hope that you're enjoying our featured interview. Before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. So hey Ritch, tell me a little bit about the Music Business Registry.
Well, what we are, Music Business Registry is the leading contact directory. We publish all of the most current, accurate, and up-to-date contact information for the music industry. We do directories for A&R. We do directories for music publishers. We do directories for film and television music. We do directories of artist managers, and we do directories of music attorneys. And we also sell other publications too, like the Indie Bible Series, the YouTube Bible Series, the Indie Spotify Bible Series, and other things as well. That's what we're about.
So if I wanted to find out, let's say, the music supervisor for American Horror Story, I can kind of go into the Film and TV monthly and find the information that I need there?
Well, we don't list specific shows. What we do list is if you know who the music supervisor is, and you can find that out on IMDb, then you can find their contact information. And we have that in our Film and Television Music Monthly. Absolutely, yes.
That's great. And I hear that we have a discount right now. If you go to musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your first order.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, we offer that to all of the MUBUTV insiders.
So insiders, check out musicregistry.com and use MUBUTV10 as your coupon code.
So a lot of that then, have you ever been approached by an unknown artist in the right way that made you say, yes, I want to deal with this because they had the right material and they had the right attitude and the right vibe as business people? I mean, has that been your experience in your career?
Yeah, I've got some great ones right now that are just beasts, that they welcome to be thrown into the post-production chaos, the last minute, because, that's the thing about film and TV, that this is all a process of post-production, and to be able to really move and to do revisions or to arrange. There's been some incredible ones over the last couple of years that I've worked with here in LA and elsewhere, but a few of these producers that are just beasts, So, I'm very fortunate.
Great.
Art, today it seems like so many of the standard business practices around the sale of copyrights are being rewritten, such as, artists selling their publishing and songwriter shares to several of the new entities in the marketplace. What are your thoughts on some of these new models?
Well, it's kind of a free market. I don't really know the overall outcome of a company that, say, is some type of money fund or investment fund. How much if artists want to stay involved, how much real access they would have to interact and help their copyrights be viewed in the way that they want them to. But now with a lot of the new models, it's kind of rewriting everything, because streaming masters get paid a lot more in streaming than composition. So it used to be, for the most part, if a composition had enough copyright length on it, it was worth more than the master. Obviously there's Frank Sinatra recordings and stuff, but there's a perfect example. My Way has probably been recorded by 100 artists through time, and so it's bigger than any Frank Sinatra recording, even though it was Frank's version is the ultimate version of it. So kind kind of interesting. And now with these master recordings, and many of the masters they have perpetual copyright length. They don't fall out of copyright like compositions do. So, and because the revenues are down, I think that's why a lot of the money funds and stuff are coming in to, make some pretty steady, solid income. These copyrights are, in this world of chaos that we all live in, are pretty steady Eddie kind of investments, hit songs anyway.
Yeah, what's interesting, Art, is that you're right. And I think this is what's caused, I think of Merck Mercuriadis, and I think of, Primary Wave, who have done several of these deals where they have bought up copyrights, but they've also bought up the publisher's share and the writer's share. I know in some cases there are producers doing these deals. Bob Ezrin, it was in the press the other day, last 2 weeks, where he did a deal where he sold all of his future royalties on the records that he's made to this company outright for like a single sum. And I guess, these were not models that or things that people did in the past, and now they're doing them today. I haven't seen it so much on the master side, but I've seen it on where, one of these deals just got done with Dave Stewart, where they bought all 108 of his compositions, and they also did the same deal with Nile Rodgers, where they bought out his whole, and, probably his royalties as a producer to, and I just wondered, this is something that seems new.
A new trend.
A new trend in the business, in music publishing, that wasn't present in previous years at all.
Well, and also, I don't think the money funds are really coming from using the multiple model, like, the old school or traditional publishing way of valuing a catalog as, giving an average of what the catalog made over 5 years or 10 years or whatever their window of time is. But to know kind of, some years it's up, some years it's down, but these songs always make this amount of money. So with the money funds and so forth, they don't really view it that way. It's just what is the fee that it will cost, and it's not viewed from a multiple level. It's at least most of the information I've seen. So it's interesting. If they were to do it multiple-wise, it would be way more multiples than a major publisher could pay, and that's probably why a lot of these companies that, they're, people that are older in the business, they'd rather cash out now. You don't know what's happening to copyrights. They have a good deal, so they're selling them. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is true. They are older, or they have bodies of work to sell, but some of, there are younger ones too who I know have done this as well. So wow. It is interesting. I mean, they've done it. They're like in their 30s.
Chainsmokers, I think.
Chainsmokers did a deal like this, and also who's the huge, was it Jeff Bhaskar that did one of these deals? I mean, Jeff's not that old.
The guy also too from Bruno Mars, one of the writers.
Yes,
of
one of the
Bruno
writers
Mars
from Bruno Mars. He has two writers. Did a deal where they just sold out everything. I guess it gives them a big chunk of money right now, but it's just interesting.
I got people come to me looking for buying streaming rights on masters, just streaming.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it's the same.
It's a whole
principle.
new. It's like a hybrid. It's like a hybrid.
But you kind of think about that. It sounds smaller, but it might be the biggest part of how it probably will be the biggest part of how you make money in the future. But to carve it out and say, hey, you can own the copyrights, you can do all this stuff, but you just give me the streaming forever.
That's interesting.
You're kind of going, whoa, that is kind of a clever way of purchasing a catalog. So it's
or at least carving it up for a songwriter.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the songwriters, it's like it's that point of their life, or they're wanting to put their kids through college, or something that is more important than that song, and so that's what they do, just like people selling houses or whatever.
I guess I'd be really curious the long-term effects of that, especially with young writers like the guys from Chainsmokers and stuff like that, because we don't know what the long-term ramifications of those rights being sold.
No.
Because they're selling all their stuff and even future stuff in some cases of what they're doing. So.
Right, exactly. I mean, I remember, the very first inclination of this concept, although it wasn't the same principle because it was based on a loan rather than a sale, was when in 1994 or 5, when David Bowie did the Bowie bonds.
The Bowie bonds,
where he borrowed $29 million against a collateral of all of the master income and all of the publishing income. He put up his entire creative output of his life to basically back that loan. He had 10 years to pay it back. Now, he did pay it back, but other people also got involved with that. As you may know, Steve Gottlieb did that deal with TVT. And he wasn't able to pay it back, and the financial people ended up getting TVT and then selling all of the assets of TVT. So, there's also, that's the dark side.
It was almost a precursor to what's going on now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But in that era, I mean, those were loans as opposed to buying of assets. And
those are hedge funds that were supporting that. Yeah.
Exactly, hedge funds. And like you were saying, Art, the interesting concept about today is the idea of, people doing that from a new model, like just selling you the streaming rights. Like you can have I want to keep the copyright, but, the streaming rights for the masters will go to you.
Yeah. I mean, and think about, because I have catalogs that have, thousands, big artists, masters, classic ones that those streaming rights are a big part of, their income every year. So,
yes.
It's pretty significant. And, this is, I believe, the best time to be an independent artist.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the world is open.
That's right. There's no, it's not easy, obviously. I mean, the majors are trying to figure it out, throwing money at different things, and different people are trying in the process of figuring it out. I'm definitely one of those in the middle of it. And, it's like being an archaeologist in a way that you're discovering it becomes new ground, for things. I've been working with a couple really good musicologists with a few of the vintage catalogs I have, and it's very interesting the music archaeology kind of side of it to see how history is passed along through music. Those sound capsules, that they've left impressions that last with people forever, and it's really that's a powerful medicine, I mean.
Well, especially like you said with the Louis Vuitton commercial that's going to be using this period piece from the 60s, it's kind of a great way for the new generation to get introduced to these songs. And like, I can think of the Rolling Stones song that just recently that kind of had what's that song that was reintroduced kind of in that commercial?
Out of Touch, or
I forget which one. She's like an angel.
She's a rainbow.
She's a rainbow. Yeah, that one kind of gets so. Obviously the Rolling Stones were Rolling Stones, but that wasn't a big. That wasn't a big known kind of track for them, and it kind of reintroduced this new song. It's like holy crap, it was the Stones on that one. So
yeah, because it was authentic, and it was even cooler that it wasn't a known track because those songs have been licensed 100 times for big dough, but it's amazing watching this because, it wasn't that long ago that groups on that level, it was a big no-no to be
exactly.
Cultural perception. You didn't do that.
Right. Yeah. And we've talked about that on previous episodes about how that was just a big no-no.
Yeah. It was considered selling out.
Yeah. I remember Sting, I think he kind of opened a lot of the doors when he tied in with Jaguar.
Right.
Oh, remember that beautiful commercial with the car?
That was such a perfect marriage. Yes.
And it made everybody like recheck themselves, going, now wait a minute, Sting just released this, tied in with this big media buy commercial, and his song went from like 87 or something in the Billboard charts up to like 12 within a matter of like
and it was a
days.
unique way to market the record, and I believe he licensed every track on that record for a different commercial, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
And it was a way. And the point you're making is interesting because everybody saw that commercial, and the point is you could never, as a record company, put $40 million behind a marketing campaign with your song.
No.
I mean, that would never happen. So all those commercials that ran for like months, the Jaguar ads had, Desert Rose on it, with Sting in the ad. Yeah, so do I. And it was a great marketing method to use. Art, let me ask you, throughout your career as an executive, as a music publisher, are there any books or films or DVDs that have really resonated with you professionally speaking that you can recommend to our audience?
Boy, that's a hard one. I've done all the books. I do just a condensed one page down, a pie chart with artists anymore, because I find musicians like myself are very short attention span. For the most part, and if I can get their attention and they get the bullet points of each of these streams of income that these two intellectual properties can make, and when you hear a piece of music in a movie, there's two intellectual properties. There's, of course, the musical composition that the songwriters wrote, and there's a master recording that various artists may have performed on it, and it's, when everybody understands what an interpolation is and a sample and what grand rights are and what streaming rights are and how you collect that monies but you can make it very like layman's terms, not speak trying to talk above an artist, but roll it out where they can really understand. I've just done a little pie chart. I don't really, anymore. I know this business of music. There was a couple books early on when I first got into synchronization that helped me a lot, but probably mostly what helped me when I was with Alan Kovac's company, I had Jeff Sidney, a real great attorney there that had been, I think, a major attorney at one of the 20th Century Fox, but he really knew synchronization. So any questions I had, I'd just go to Jeff and he'd tell me, oh, that's how this works. And it was more just getting thrown in the fire and
learning as you went,
having to figure it out, but being, making sure you know what you don't know, so that you then go out to people that can really help you learn it. And the same thing is happening right now, gentlemen. I mean, this is with the streaming and really some of the precedents that's being set now with, some legal cases and so forth. It's, there's going to be some decisions that will be made over the next year or two that's going to affect the whole music business for the next decade or so, So it's, I think the new music business is just beginning. It's starting to roll now. So it's going to be a fun next few years. So, I'm an optimist.
Yeah, I am too. I think a lot of new things and a lot of new, as they say, in any revolution, you develop new habits. But what's not said in that statement is that you also develop new values. And I think that's what we've really been talking about here is how, a lot of these new deals and new deal structures and new royalty streams are coming from a new kind of value system that we didn't have before.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's okay in my view. As long as the artists can get a fair shake, the songwriters and the artists can get, in my opinion, way better deal than they have in the past. And, especially the independent ones. And I got to say, some of these artists, I learn more from them than anybody else by seeing them trying things and finding out what works and doesn't work. So, being older, I have to keep that in check. Forget about anything be open to learning new things. And that's what's fun about it, because you're not just stuck in a place that you're re-putting the stamp on the letter as it goes by you.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Art, professionally speaking, what have your biggest mistakes taught you?
Always think about, sometimes if you feel like writing a letter to somebody or really telling diving into something maybe too assertively or aggressive, really let that letter sit overnight and look at it again in the morning. Try to see it from both sides so that, a lot of, I feel what my job is in placing songs is getting everybody to agree upon, one thing at a given time. And a lot of that in dealing with selling is that, if you don't like the answer, change the question. It's like, present it in what you're trying to achieve in a way that whoever you're presenting it to will be able to digest it and more often than not come back and respond to you in the way that you want them to respond to you. So, it's a bit of creating your own luck. I believe in that too, but hey, work, putting in the hours is probably 90% of success anyway, so you just, keep doing it.
Art, how can people reach you or your team at your company who are interested in either doing business with you or connecting with you? Is there a best way to do that?
Yeah, they could go to the worldsongnetwork.com, and there's a contact place on where that they can sign in and throw me an email and explain who they are and what they have, and either I or my assistant will get back to them. And it's World Song Network, and again, worldsongnetwork.com.
Beautiful. All right, great.
As someone who has successfully built a contemporary music company, what advice do you have for someone who wants to build their own music publishing company today?
Well, I would say focus on more than just publishing. I would focus on masters as much as publishing now. If you're going to be, developing a new type of entertainment company or group, because calling something a record label is kind of an old term. But yeah, I'd say, and really focus on the areas where the most money is, and that's in synchronization and touring are probably the two main. And, the touring thing, that's why, you need bands that are self-contained and know how to use their social media. You'll see bands, they have fans, pick them up at the airport and house them and all sorts of stuff. It's so incredible. And, find a way to build a following, and synchronization, I think, is a big thing. And some bands will have some merchandising and all that, but, I would say focus on those areas, touring and synchronization, but in streaming more so. If it's a certain kind of band, you might have vinyl or something. I think CDs are a bit of a thing of the past, maybe even iTunes and certain styles of music, but, focus on streaming and getting the songs up on the playlist, in, any way you know how. And, use all your media outlets to find your audience and build a company.
Art, I can't thank you enough. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Art.
Hey, my honor, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the message forward here. We're all trying to do the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've known Art for such a long time. He's such a great guy and so knowledgeable and experienced. And this is a guy who really knows his business. And as you could hear, he really has philosophy. He has his own business. He has an understanding of the mechanics of how this particular business works. And he's an independent publisher.
Right.
And, so many great things I thought came out of this interview. I mean, some of the things that stuck with me were like when he talked about some of the most common and preventable mistakes, like people not putting contact information when they send, music in. This is something that I think has been talked about ad nauseum with so many articles that I read, putting in what's called the metadata. Because music today is not physical. It's not like you write your name with a pen on a CD and mail it out.
Correct.
It's got to be in the file. You've got to have the name, the address, the contact information, the split, all of that is called metadata. And it's interesting. It's not only with amateurs that this is a problem. It's a problem with pros. Professionals where people aren't getting paid for, huge hit records because nobody took the time to do the metadata. And he also talked about doing your research. So important. Doing your research. And the other mistake that he said is overwhelming people.
People with music.
God, is that a common thing?
Less is more.
Yes. Don't send people, 10 songs or 35 songs or whatever, or even 10 songs,
Right.
Send less than 5,
right?
And make sure that they're your best.
It's like a demo. Sending a demo in the old days to a record company, you send them your 3 best songs.
Absolutely, not an entire thing all at once.
Yeah, and I thought also when we were talking about has the criteria changed or his criteria changed over the years regarding what you will sign. Giving your infrastructure today. And I thought, he was talking about that he doesn't do traditional deals. Agreements happen as the opportunities arise. And, that he had a lot of writers and, that he does a lot of the work for nothing initially. So it's a lot of hustle on his part to make things happen, which I think is a good incentive for both the artist and him because, he is trying to hustle to get the stuff placed into things. And so I think that's a good, payoff for that.
Absolutely. And he spoke about that. He said, I have to earn my way through.
Correct.
A lot of it is free initially, but I have to earn my way in terms of, reaching certain plateaus, reaching certain milestones before we get paid, understanding those splits. And he spoke about, how the kind of people that he wants to be in business with in this regard are people who are knowledgeable about the business that they are
they're business minded. And I thought that was, I guess, in regards to the non-creative qualities that you look for in people that you're working with, that they are team players, that they do understand and they're business minded, as you mentioned earlier, and, aligning themselves with artists that he wants to become partners with.
Absolutely, because that's what it is. It is a partnership.
Right.
And you need to have an understanding of what your contribution is. You need to understand what you expect from someone like Art and what he's bringing to the table.
Right.
And he's expecting that from you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is a very, very very important point. He mentioned something in that which I thought was really important, which is the whole idea of time management and understanding and respecting people's time.
Right.
It's one of the most, I learned that when I worked for Arista, for Clive Davis. He used to talk about that in A&R meetings where he would say, the reason you don't listen to unsolicited material is because it's the value of your time. You have to put a value on your time. And is that the most effective use? He's, companies are not paying you this salary to, be frivolous with your time. There are only so many hours and minutes in a day, no matter how hard you work. And you need to be respectful of that. And you need to be conscious of that as to where you put your time and energy. And Art mentioned that, that whole thing of understanding time management and where you should put your time and energy, very, very important, especially when you're getting together in partnerships and working with people.
Right. And I think, he was talking about with, what have your biggest mistakes taught you? And I guess one of the points that I thought was interesting, or a couple of them were, being too aggressive to let it sit overnight and to, kind of let it marinate and to see it from both sides, as he mentioned, and, getting everyone to agree and to not take it personal.
That's one of the, I don't think, that's often a phrase that's used. Again, don't take it personal. But it's a very, very, very deeply philosophical and profound concept of not taking anything personal. I mean, if you study anything about personal growth work, one of the things that I remember about that is that, when you really get advanced in that particular field, nothing in life is personal. Nothing.
Hey Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at mubutv.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor, show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nicole Capodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum, theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast.